Good morning. Welcome to another edition of the Kitchings Table. I'm your host, W. Earl Kitching, and as always, on every Tuesday morning here at 10 a.m., we welcome you to share and join with us whatever news and information we're bringing to you because we know that it's either something you don't know about or something that is relative to your day. And we always want to make sure that we do the best we can to bring you such information and news. Joining me, as always, is my co host, Ronleen Kennedy. Good morning, Ronleen.
Good morning, Earl.
I take it your day is going well so far.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
However, I was a little saddened about the topic that we're going to be talking about today. However, I did find my strength and I'm ready to bring it. At least
Well,
help you
good.
bring it.
Well, as as I've shared with you, sometimes the topic of the day is a little late in coming. Sometimes it's a little early. It just depends. And news is such a transitional thing in this day and time where things happen so rapidly and news comes out so quickly, and you think you have something that's good to talk about, and then something better comes out. So things get pushed aside. So it happens, but that's the beauty of technology in this day and time. You can implement something relatively quickly, and if you're quick enough to look up the information or research the information, you can do a good job of finding it. So here's where we are this morning. And our topic today is working parents, a foundation to strong family units. Working parents. And when I saw the article about this, it caught my attention simply because when we talk about working parents, that means both parents have a job. And I'm not speaking of a parent who stays at home and is a housekeeper because that is a job. But I think what they were alluding to was parents who literally leave them home every day and go to work for someone else. And it talks about the outcomes that their children have when they come from a foundation where number one, both parents are in the home. Number two, both parents are working. Number three, both parents participate in the structure of both uh, taking care of the home, bringing in the resources to take care of the home, and important raising and disciplining the children as the family grows. So, working parents are the foundation to strong family units. I don't think you'll find too many people who will disagree with that. But then it caught my eye about how this particular topic is celebrated. So, Ronleen, do you know what is celebrated on September the 16th?
Yes. So that is dealing with um, like bring your
Okay.
children to work day.
Close.
Okay.
September the 16th has been designated as National Working Parents Day. National Working Parents Day. And I got to thinking, I'm like, National Working Parents Day. How many other days are there on our annual calendar where we celebrate a day? Not a federal holiday. No, I'm not talking about holidays. I'm talking about when we celebrate a day, when there have been days designated with certain themes or certain acknowledgments. So I pulled up a list and it goes from January to December. And although this is a strong list, it's not the entire list because there are some other days that if you go online and look up special days or noted days, if you click on January, you'll probably find a day in January every day where there's some type of designation. So we don't always know about all the days, but then again, we find out about those days and like Secretary's Day and Boss's Day and Grandmother's Day or Grandparents' Day and so on and so forth. So there are so many of these days that are designated, and because they're not national holidays, they don't get the, I guess, emphasis, because I'm sure they're all important. But it's interesting that Religious Freedom Day is January 16th, which is a day after we're supposed to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday. And then you have National Sanctity of Human Life Day, Education and Sharing Day. All of these are uh, in the early part of the year. Susan B. Anthony Day, Harriet Tubman Day, Cesar Chavez Day, National Tartan Day, Loyalty Day, Law Day, Military Spouse Day, Armed Forces Day, of course, National Missing Children's Day. Uh, some others are Women's Equality Day, National Grandparents Day, Patriot Day, Family Day, Gold Star Mother's Day, Child Health Day, White Cane Safety Day. I think that might have to do with people who may have vision impairments. World Freedom Day, excuse me, American Recycles Day, the National Philanthropy Day, World AIDS Day, Bill of Rights Day, Wrights Brothers Day. Now, Ron Lee, the last one, December 17th, Wrights Brothers Day. Do you know who the Wright brothers were? Right? Forgive the pun. You know who the Wright brothers were, correct?
No,
You don't know the Wright brothers, Ron Lee?
no.
Had it not been for the Wright brothers, there would be no airplanes right now. They are the first inventors of an aircraft. They invented a bi-winged aircraft, took it to what they call Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, which is at the northern part of Cape Hatteras Island. And because it's very windy there, they took their their aircraft there. And I believe they had about maybe somewhere around 45-second flight off those dunes on that island. And from there became this building of future aircraft that we now know as airplanes and jets. And they are, at least in America, I don't know if it happens somewhere else, but at least in America. But prior to them building this airplane, they used to manufacture bicycles. So
Oh,
they were quite the inventors. So today we're talking about working parents, and September 16th is called National Working Parents Day. And I want to start off with a, a quote I saw in an article that I read from the Labor Department, and it said former Labor Department official Daniel Patrick Moynihan wrote a report, and his summation contained a passage that conservatives rarely quote, and that is 3 centuries of injustice have brought about deep seated structural distortions in the life of the Negro American. The cycle can be broken only if these distortions are set right. He would be sorry to learn that we have yet to find a way to set them right, and that his insights are used to rationalize our failure. So that came from an article that was written for the National Labor Department. And he argued that there was a tangle of pathology affecting Black communities, and that Black families in the urban ghetto saw that community crumbling. Nearly one-fourth of Black babies are born to unwed mothers. Now, I bring this point up first simply because as we set our topic for today, working parents, we need to understand first and foremost that when we talk about the workforce and the fact that sometimes it requires two parents to bring in enough income to take care of family, when you only have that one family person who's working, and sometimes they're working two jobs, and even working two jobs, it does not always provide enough. But One of the things that research has shared with us is Black parents participate in the U.S. workforce in high numbers, with 3 in 4 Black children under age 6 having all residential parents actively engaged in employment. Half of Black female workers are mothers, and more than two-thirds of working Black mothers are single. These are the facts. These aren't anything that Earl or Ronleen is making up. These are the facts in bringing this forward. It is not to diminish or to cast any disparaging thoughts or words against those people who are in these situations. But the thing about our pre entry to our topic for today is this: as long as the economics in this country are very, very slanted toward those who have and need to have more, or those who have opportunities to make more and get the opportunities to engage in careers that provide 6 figures or more, then we're not going to ever see some things in our communities disappear. It may change, it may look different, it may have a different way of engaging us, but some things will not change because as long as there's economic disproportionment, things cannot get on equal ground and this situation can never be set right. But still, with all that being said, the strength of parents, I don't care what color they are, the strength of parents lies in the ability to identify opportunities for working, to make sure that they take care of family needs first, and then continue that in building a family so that there can be a cohesive unit. Children, I know we've always heard people say they didn't know they were poor when they were growing up. You know, they were raised in communities and they'll say, well, I didn't know we were poor. You don't look at it until maybe, at least when you get to high school, you might have somebody to bring it to your attention because children can be so cruel in bringing uh, negative facts to you in certain ways. And the fact that we have parents who take it upon themselves to do the best they can. You can only do what you can do based on what opportunities for economic growth you have, whatever what kind of job you have. But in talking about working parents, uh, I found a couple of articles that I thought were pretty interesting. One by Tamia King for the Atlanta Black Star website, and it was titled "Parenting in the Black Community: Why Raising Children is So Different for Us." And this came out in 2015. And what Tamia King highlighted first and foremost was that there are different ways for raising our children. And while both parents may be working, there still has to be some continuity about how we're going to raise our children. And one of the things she brought out was that white parents and black parents raise their children differently, whereas there may be a little bit more flexibility in the white home and the white household and amongst a white family and in the way they allow their children to express themselves and explore the world and run around at times to seemingly to be uncontrolled or unguided. Black children, and this is a testimony to our families, our parents, and our grandparents. Black children, as she stated, on the other hand, are taught to accept the world of their parents above all else and are often taught to be quiet and polite when in public. Now, the reason that is, and I can say this because you want to have your children understand the control mechanisms that need to be in place. When you want them to do something without injuring, harming themselves, or whatever, you want them to follow your directions to the letter. And that is key because when you see children who are out of control, the first thing you think about is, well, who are their parents? That's the first thing you think about. You see a child running around in the grocery store and you wondering, where is the parent? Because sometimes a child doesn't know any more than you allow them to get away with. So if they're out in the store and they're just running around doing things and acting up or misbehaving or whatever they're doing, the parent has to take responsibility for that. So as a culture, we are a little bit firmer with our discipline than maybe our Caucasian brothers and sisters. However, when we talk about parenting and our family structure, uh, the idea of acting properly and correct, uh, she says, came from this idea of uh, our parents wanting our children to be seen as non-threatening and civilized. We can get those bad labels, and we'll get labels. Our children will get labels. You'll have those things happen. So, in essence, part of the reason she says black parents are so hard on their children is because they don't want to see uh, or they don't want to perpetuate the black stereotypes perpetuated by a racist society. So, if you always think that doing something negative to a black child is going to get some pushback or get some backlash, well, it's because you have that lack of respect or you choose to treat them differently. You choose to put them in some type of stereotypical mindset from the person perpetrating that action. And because we don't want those things, done to our children in public, or we don't want anyone to discipline our children the incorrect way or speak to our children the incorrect way, because there have been times, and I know when I was growing up during the times of segregation, where you had to mind where you were and what you said and did. Otherwise, there was going to be a backlash from non black adults uh, in life. And our parents did not want that to happen. We still don't want that to happen. You will not just talk to our children any kind of way. And I think we have an understanding of how discipline our children works. We can go by strong words. We definitely can go by strong looks. And I know we all know that when your parents used to cut their eyes at you and they gave you that stare or whatever, you knew to control yourself and get right. And I know for those of us who can remember being in church, and if you were sitting out there in church and your parent or your grandmother was up there in the choir or something and she saw you acting up, boy, her eyes were lasered on you. And if you looked up and saw her eyes, you almost shrunk right there, because here was the deal. As soon as church was over, as we say, there was going to be some straightening. But if you were out of control bad enough, they were going to straighten you out on the spot immediately. And everybody would just kind of stand there and be like, mm-hmm, you knew it was coming. Yeah, you knew it was coming. And you look at your children and they get the message that, mm-hmm, act up if you want to. But that's the discipline part of children parenting that we have to consider. The American Sociological Association published a study in 2002 that indicates African American parents favor the disciplinarian or authoritarian approach to parenting. This study involved 302 African American adolescents and their mothers, and revealed that black parents have a more take charge philosophy than parenting by white middle class counterparts. And the study states that black parents may be more harsh on their children in an attempt to prepare them for a world that is filled with discrimination and societal biases that do not favor people of color. So these are the things that we need to understand first and foremost when we talk about working parents, because if both parents are working, they need that structure and that discipline to be in place so that those children are not just all over the place. Because as they would tell you when you would be in school, Don't make me have to get off my job to come see you in school. Don't
Mm-mm.
make me have, if I have to get off my job to come see about what you're doing in school, it's not going to be a good day for you. And they meant that. And then the other part was in a two-parent home, the mother could discipline you, but you know what she would say, right, Ronline? Wait till who get
Yeah.
home?
Your father gets home. Wait till your
Wait till
daddy
he
get
get. Oh
home.
my goodness! And you might be like, well, what is that? Well, it's going to be a little firmer, and
Mhm.
it may not necessarily be something from the aspect of physical discipline, but let me tell you, I, as a black father myself, and having been in uh, situations and organizations of dealing with our children, finding other ways to discipline them can be very enlightening. And I say that from the aspect of having been a scout leader, Ronline. Uh, we could not discipline them like we used to have when I was in scouting. So my discipline when guys would get out of line would be 25 push-ups. That was the standard discipline. And that's not cruel, that's not unjust. That's physical. Um, the Boy Scouts based some of their values on physical fitness. And how else can you get physical fitness if you don't exercise? So if that exercise means it's going to help you become physically fit, then okay. And you know that kind of took care of it because 25 push-ups that can go for a long time if you don't do them properly. But all in all, when we're talking about working parents and the fact that this day is celebrated, uh, from another article written by Leah Dickens in the Health Topics website, uh, this day is called upon for commemorating and showing support for parents who juggle working outside the home while raising children. And as she indicates in her article, it is no small feat to keep children nourished, entertained, hygienic, and educated. Let's say those four things again: nourished, entertained, hygienic, and educated, while also dedicating their time and effort to an outside employer. Now, for those families who have been fortunate enough to be able to sustain off of one income and one parent can stay home and raise children, all well and good. But when we talk about working parents, and the code word there is parents, not parent. It's about two parents. And when we talk about parents who have to go to work every day and who look to do the best they can in their job place or in their workplace, they don't want the distraction of worrying about what's happening to their kids in school and after school. And these are some of their concerns. And she also states that there have been multiple studies showing that kids who have working parents have positive outcomes in the areas of social interactions, independence, finances, and quality time. That would be a true statement most of the time. That's not the 100% answer because there have been some children who have come from single families, single parent homes, or families who did not have all the economics they needed, but love and structure and discipline and care got them through difficult times. And I know you grew up in neighborhoods where you had some family units who were like that. So did I. I was just talking to a friend of mine who uh, he had four other siblings in a very small home and two parents that went to work every day. And sometimes when you reflect back on these days and times, you ask yourself, how on earth did they make it? How on earth did they make it? I mean, no, they're not living in poverty, but For you to have 5 children in a small 3 bedroom, 1 bath home, and you're taking care of those children' needs and keeping that roof over their head and keeping that mortgage payment made, or you know, you go without transportation because you have to take public transportation because you have to take the monies you have to take care of those children. You just ask yourself, how did they make it? And I think in my growing up, one of the things that I made a strong effort to do, Ron Lean, was not to talk about or tease anyone who had less than I had, because I know I had not what a lot of other folks who had more than me had. So we all had different levels, but uh, children have no control over how they are raised by their parents and the situations they live in. So far be it for me to chime in with others might want to talk about their situations. You don't know their situation, and you have two parents who are doing the best they can, and the best thing you can do is either not say anything, as your parents used to tell you. If you can't say something good about somebody, don't say anything at all.
Oh,
Keep your mouth shut, because your day will come when somebody says something about you that you don't like, and you get upset, and it doesn't feel good. So uh, take on the strength of befriending or encouraging, or if you can't do those or you can't say something positive, just don't say anything. Just don't say anything. Leave the situation alone. You don't know what their situation is, and of course you can't affect it because you don't have anything to add to help their situation become better. So we talk about working parents and how these things go forth, and it's been, you know, parents who definitely, in order to make sure the household is done at a very positive structure, would divvy up chores. And for all you people who had siblings, I don't care if you had one sister or one brother, or you had multiple sisters or brothers, those chores got divvied up. Okay, so I don't really, have any soft spots for you guys because y'all had the work spread out. You could have more than one person take on chores. Everybody had something to do. For those of us who were single children, we had to do all the chores. So just understand that life is good, but it's not all you think it is when you have to do all the chores, and you're
yeah.
expected to do the chores. You don't get one thing to do per week. You get multiple things to do per week, and that's just the way it is. Like they say, if it don't kill you, it'll make you stronger. So that's what I got for right now, Ron Lean.
Understood. When you talked about having to do all of the chores by yourself, sometimes, even though you had siblings, it was an act of punishment where everybody else go and you were stuck on stuck with all of the chores or whatever. And then my parents had a nerve to have an acre of land. Most of it was
Mm, mm,
vegetation, but
mm,
because
mm,
of the
mm,
acorn
mm.
pine straws, I had to get out there and rake up the yard anyway. So I
Rake.
understand.
You got to go out there and rake. Rake the pine
Yes,
straw, rake the leaves. Go out there and rake.
and bag them up and set them to the street.
Bag them up. Bag them up. And this was before we had large plastic bags.
Yes.
Okay? You're familiar with plastic bags now. Yeah, when we were coming up, no, it wasn't. The grocery bag was the only
Yes.
bag.
Hmm.
Or you could get a big sheet of plastic and try to make a bag, but they had not really come out with plastic bags yet. Everything was a paper bag. And if you couldn't put them in a bag, you would rake them up in a big pile, and the garbage people would come along and they would put them in the back of the trucks and take them away. But those chores, man, what was your primary chore, Ron Lean?
Washing clothes and the dishes.
Clothes and dishes. Okay. Somebody else had the vacuuming and the cleaning of the house and the bathrooms, and someone else. I tell you, when it came time to when it was that spring cleaning, that spring cleaning mean the whole house gonna get scrubbed from top to bottom. Man, when you had to take those blinds down, remember those
Mm,
metal blinds? Take those
yes.
blinds down out the brackets so you could clean the windows. You had to take the blinds outdoors to clean the blinds, let them dry, and then bring them back in. Man, that let me tell you. But we talk about parents who are doing things to raise their children, and the article also states that chores for sons were different than daughters. Daughters were more inside, sons were more outside. I knew both. I
Yes.
knew both. Cutting the yard or vacuuming, I knew both. So, but the fact that these households in this day and time, a 2010 meta-analysis of 69 studies spanned over half a century found that children whose mothers worked had no increase in learning, behavior, or social issues. So they were pretty much good. We're at the halfway point of our show today here on the Kitchings Table. And today we're talking about working parents being the foundation of a strong family unit. And this is because in finding some information in the newspaper that talks about National Working Parents Day, we wanted to just talk about working parents and what their uh, challenges were. But the fact that through it all, working a job, some parents worked multiple jobs. Through it all, those parents made a strong family unit that helped so many children and other children in the neighborhood. And in talking to the same friend of mine the other day, we were talking about the fact that, Ron Lee, we don't have neighborhoods like when we grew up. These neighborhoods aren't like that, where children were out and about. You very seldom see children out and about in the parks and on the streets, or they're all indoors.
Mm-hmm.
They're all indoors. So that makes it even a little bit more challenging because when children get bored, they'll find something to do. Especially when
They
you're
do.
told not to bother something, don't you bother that. Mm, the devil will jump on them and say, "Yeah, let's see what that's all about." You know, it's gonna be all right. You're not gonna get in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, um, so and just looking at some of the things that I was able to find out, two working parents tend to have more time without parental supervision at early ages than those with a stay-at-home parent. Uh, they talk about the lack of supervision can cause poor school performance and lead to more risky decisions. Again, strong parenting will deter that. So many things in this article by Lee Dickens, and then the article written by Christine Carter for Forbes magazine is where I really got started with this, and she talked about how the working parents face challenges at home and at work. However, a lot of it is faced by the mothers more so than anyone. And, they're talking about the fact now that childcare is considered to be in a very negative path of being lost. States that up to 70,000 childcare programs could be lost due to funding. And it's unfortunate that that kind of statement is made when we consider the billions of dollars. And again, this is not a negative to talk about a situation that a country is facing. It's just to show you the parity. So billions of dollars can go to Ukraine, but billions of dollars can't be put into child care funding. We're going to lose 70,000 programs because of funding, but yet funding is over there in a war. And that, Ronline, the song and the statement, war, what is it good for? Is so true. I mean, it's good for nothing. At the end of the day, when it's all said and done, a lot of destruction, a lot of lives lost, a lot of money spent for what? For what? Whereas a lot of positive things could have been done with that same money. People could be paid better. There could be more programs for children. There can be better food programs. I mean, there's so much positive that can be done rather than all this destruction. Man, it's so destructive at times. I mean, billions of dollars sent to a country to help them survive because another country is not happy with what they're doing. But when we talk about that many child care programs being lost, uh, it comes back to the parents. And, in addition to that, when we talk about the cost of living going up, so parents pretty much have to have two incomes unless you have that real good six-figure job. And even sometimes that six-figure job, maybe not enough depending on the size of the family. So we talk about food, healthcare, transportation, uh, real estate, all these things, prices go up. And if the parents can't keep up with the rising cost to live, what happens to the family unit?
Mhm.
Uh, in looking at something on the internet, a gentleman was talking about how much money we spend for hair care and clothing, but spend little money on proper foods. We'll eat cheap foods, and then we'll get sick, and then we have to spend more money to stay well. And it's just amazing how when people put those analogies together. So you'll spend $100 on your hair, but you won't spend $100 to make sure you have proper foods to eat, to maintain your body. Uh, it's just amazing. But we talk about the fact that our families need to have strong parental units, and in another article from Fartherly website says that 89.1% of all families have at least one parent in the workforce, at least one, 90% almost, which sounds about right. But let me just give you a couple of facts about what working parents need to know. Child care costs are crushing working parents. Working parents struggle to pay for essentials. Working parents have no federal paid leave. Working parents skip doctor's visits due to health costs. Working parents have worked longer hours. Working parents are worried about their kids' safety. Because public schools are underfunded, they're asked to do more. Working parents worry that they may not be able to retire. Student loan debts is an impact on working parents because if they've got that over their heads, they got a house note, loans for their education, and all these other essentials for parents. And here's a fact that says more than 20% of families have student loan debt. So 1 out of 5 parents have student loan debt, and the debt can be as much as $500 to $600 a month, in addition to what you're already paying. Number 10, many working parents can't afford to only work one job. Can't afford to work only one. 13 million Americans worked multiple jobs in 2019. 13 million. Working parents struggle to put healthy food on the table. Working parents struggle with the unpredictability of the work shift, which means that, and you can see that now with the auto workers now going on strike against the manufacturers. And for the first time in the history of these workers striking, they are striking all of the American car manufacturing plants at one time: Ford, Chrysler, and General Motors. They're striking all three of them at the same time, which means income is going to be affected. Some of them feel it's impossible to be a good parent and a good worker. Imagine having that in your head every day. I can't be a good parent and be a good worker because I'm trying to juggle both. But the last one says working parents deserve more. Flat out deserve more. Just as our teachers who teach our children every day in school deserve more. And when you look at the fact that those people who work in corporate jobs at the very upper levels are getting compensated 7 million, 7-figure salaries in addition to stock that keeps them very, very well off. But yet, when people sacrifice their time and their uh, job and their benefits so that the place where they work can stay on track, then when they get back on track, those at the top don't want to share the wealth. Greed is a very, very, very dangerous thing here in this country. Too many people are concerned about having more than what they need. If you got $50 billion, you're still not satisfied. And then the question becomes, what are you doing for others? So, Ronline, I'm gonna stop right there and get some of your input because I've touched on so many different things this morning, but it all has to do with the fact that our working parents are the foundation to a strong family unit, regardless of what people might want to think. When you got two parents in the home, things are better for that home and those children.
Yes, well, that is true when you're not dealing with the dysfunctionalities of what goes on in the home. So we have a lot of that, we know. But if the home structure is strong, you're right, they have a better opportunity to have that strong foundation and to know what that looks like and to prepare one for themselves because that's what it's really all about, the name of the game. And I had a pleasure of speaking to one of the ladies who I've been knowing just about all of her life, and she works with special needs children. And when I thought about, the daycare centers and things that was no that's no longer in business because they had to fold, due to lack of funding and things like that. I thought about um, the schools that were open year round during the pandemic because of the challenged children, the special needs children, and I'm talking about severely special needs children, meaning that
Mm-hmm.
they needed that round the clock care. And so for those daycares that were able to transition into becoming those type of centers to wherein be able to stay later, open later or whatever, because the normal operation is really from 6, sometimes from 5:30 in the morning to 6 p.m. in the evening, and then some of them were turned into 24 hours because of the split shifts and things like that we talked about, that we just touched on. So for those special needs children, what she said was there's always going to be funding for that, you know, simply because the parents are out there lobbying, especially for the mothers. The mothers are lobbying for these children to have. And what I took from that is we have to get stronger about lobbying for the rights for ourselves as well. When we show up in large numbers, things get done. And when I thought about that happening, the structure of, why there aren't a lot of fathers in the home, why there are a lot of absent parents in the home, should I say it that way, is because something happened. And whatever that is, we have to find a cohesive way of being able to establish that foundation because Number one, we have so many things against us, and you brought that out eloquently as well. Number one is all about equality where your jobs are concerned, the salaries. So one person may need two or three salaries going on in order to sustain what's going on in the household, such as to be able to have insurance in place and food in place. And so to be able to, and to go to these doctor's appointments, the article was talking about how doctor's appointments were being salvaged because number one, they had to be on the job. The demands of that could not take off, that kind of thing. And if you have a child that was a special needs child and you do not know that yet, you don't know why they're behaving the way they're doing, or why they're not engaged the way they should be, or why they're not thriving the way they should be. So you might miss the diagnosis because you're not able to go to the doctor, because you're not able to take off from work, and with the fear of losing that income, and you can't afford to lose any income you know
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
with that being said, there's so many factors that goes into play of trying to keep a family structure together.
Well, for those parents who are listening or watching, we tip our caps off to you for keeping it together, for doing
Yeah.
whatever you need to do to keep that family unit intact. For those parents of special needs children, may you continue to find ways to make things work as best they can for you, because I know it's a challenge when you have the additional challenge of raising children who have needs that are very very critical. So we pray
and,
that you continue to have a way made for you and that things work in your favor.
and
Well,
Earl,
we're at that point. Yes.
you said something that was very key. I never thought about our children losing their lives at school until it happened. So that's another thing that's the first and forefront. Is like, okay, is my child safe being at the bus stop, walking in school? And what happens when they cross the threshold of the schoolyard, going into the classroom? Am I going to receive a phone call that my child just life was lost because of some heinous crime? So that's another thing that's on the forefront. And homeschooling is not always the answer, because it takes $2,000 per child to even homeschool. So and then the school lunch programs, the article mentioned that, as far as that may be ending. So the children are already hungry as it is, and then to be hungry in school and still having to learn, that's a whole nother bite in itself.
Well, this is true, and that may be a topic for another day. So we get to that point of the show where last week we told you just before we close we're going to offer Black history facts and information, and Ronlene's going to bring that to you. So at this point, we will let her do her Black history fact for the day.
Thank you so much, and drum roll please. Today,
All
today we're going to bring to us Nat Glover, also known as Nathaniel Glover, out of Jacksonville, Florida. And he was born March 29, 1943. And he is still living with us today. He did a lot of firsts. But the thing that I want to bring to you today, he is an author. His book is called Striving for Justice, a Black Sheriff in the Deep South. And he had structured his book to come around what they call Axe Handle Saturday,
Saturday.
that took place in August of 1960. And for those that don't know anything about that, I ask that you look it up, because Mr. Glover, what he has done. He has patterned his life around the reconstruction of what has been going on for unity. So our time is ending up. So thank you for allowing me to bring his name to the forefront. And maybe we'll get a chance to talk about him and his legacy that he is leaving behind um, at some other time. So I turn it over to you, Earl.
Okay, Ronline, and I think people also need to know that Nat Glover was the first black sheriff in Jacksonville, Florida. Well, that's going to do it for us today here on the Kitchings Table. We hope that you found something that was positive and gave you some inspiration as to something that can improve your life or something you can share with someone else to improve their life. For Ronline Kennedy, I'm W. Earl Kitchings saying until the next time, go out and do something good for somebody else. Till next week, take care, everybody.
Goodbye.